The gun wasn't aimed at her head. It was aimed at her heart. Seraphina Vale knelt on cold marble, wrists bound behind her back, blood crusting her split lip. She couldn't speak. He didn't listen. The room smelled like cigar smoke and expensive cologne, the kind worn by men who bought people like produce. Enzo Carbone circled her like a predator studying wounded prey. She was supposed to scream. He was supposed to enjoy it. But when his hand reached for her face, something shifted in his black eyes, something that looked almost like hesitation. What happened next changed everything. Because the most dangerous man in the city just broke his first rule, he stopped. Hey, beautiful souls, before we dive into Seraphina's story, and trust me, you're not ready for where this goes, tell me, where are you watching from right now? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And how are you doing today? I hope you're ready for a story that'll grip your heart and refuse to let go. If you haven't subscribed yet, do that now. Seriously. This channel is all about stories that hit different, stories about survival, power, and the dangerous space where love and darkness collide. Hit that subscribe button because you'll want to catch every twist coming your way. Now, let's talk about Enzo Carbone and the woman who made him forget what power really meant. 3 hours earlier. Seraphina had learned long ago that resistance only made the pain last longer. When the black SUV pulled up outside the crumbling apartment she'd been hiding in, she didn't run. Running implied hope, and hope was a luxury for people who hadn't already been sold twice before their 23rd birthday. She stood in the center of her threadbare living room, hands loose at her sides, breathing steady. The door didn't knock. It exploded inward. 4 men in tailored suits swept through like smoke, efficient and silent. The largest one, a man with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow, grabbed her arm without a word. She didn't fight. She'd learned that too. Enzo Carbone sends his regards, Scarface murmured as he zip-tied her wrists. Your brother made some very poor choices. Her brother. Of course. Liam had always been good at 2 things, making promises and breaking them. Apparently, this time he promised something to the Carbone family and delivered nothing. And in the world of organized crime, debts didn't disappear, they just changed forms. She was the new currency. The drive through the city was silent except for the hum of tires on asphalt. Seraphina watched neon lights blur past the tinted windows, clubs, restaurants, entire blocks owned by the Carbone empire. Everyone knew the name. Everyone feared it. Enzo Carbone wasn't just a mafia boss. He was the mafia boss. 3 families answered to him. Politicians took his calls. Judges ruled in his favor. He was 34 years old and had already built a kingdom most men couldn't dream of. And now, Seraphina was being delivered to him like a package. She knew what happened to women like her in the hands of men like him. She'd survived it before. She would survive it again. Survival was all she had left. The Carbone estate sat behind iron gates and evergreen hedges, a sprawling mansion that looked more like a fortress. Seraphina was pulled from the SUV and marched through marble hallways lined with oil paintings and armed guards. Every door they passed whispered wealth and violence in equal measure. They stopped in front of double doors carved from dark wood. Scarface knocked twice, then pushed her inside. The room was massive, a private office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A desk made of black walnut dominated the space. And behind it stood Enzo Carbone. He wasn't what she expected. She'd imagined someone grotesque, bloated with power and cruelty. But Enzo was tall and lean, dressed in a charcoal suit tailored to perfection. Dark hair slicked back. Sharp jawline. Eyes like polished obsidian that revealed absolutely nothing. He didn't smile. Didn't sneer. Didn't react at all. He simply studied her. Leave us, he said quietly. The guards obeyed instantly, the doors clicking shut behind them. Seraphina stood in the center of the room, wrists still bound, blood still drying on her face. She kept her gaze on the floor. Eye contact invited violence. Silence invited survival. Enzo moved around the desk with the grace of something predatory. His footsteps were nearly silent on the Persian rug. He stopped 3 feet away. Look at me. It wasn't a request. Seraphina lifted her eyes slowly, expecting to see hunger or amusement or rage. Instead, she saw calculation. Cold. Controlled. Dangerous in a way that had nothing to do with fists or guns. Your brother owes me $2 million, Enzo said, voice smooth as silk over steel. He also cost me a shipment worth 3 times that. Do you know what that means? She knew. It meant Liam had signed her death warrant. I didn't ask to be here, she whispered. No one ever does. Enzo tilted his head slightly, gaze sliding over her face, her bruised lip, her bound wrists. But here you are. He reached for her. Seraphina flinched, not because she was weak, but because muscle memory didn't forget. Her body expected pain. Expected violation. Expected the same thing every powerful man had taken from her before. But Enzo's hand stopped mid-air. For 3 heartbeats, he simply stared at his own hand as if it had betrayed him. Then his jaw tightened, and he lowered it slowly, deliberately. Who hit you? He asked. The question surprised her more than a slap would have. Does it matter? Answer me. Your man. The one with the scar. Enzo's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes, something dark and final. He pulled his phone from his pocket, typed a single message, and slipped it away. 30 seconds later, a gunshot echoed from somewhere in the mansion. Seraphina's breath caught. Enzo stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, cedar and smoke. I have rules, he said quietly. The first is simple, no one damages what belongs to me. Belongs to me. There it was. The claim. The ownership. The inevitability. She steeled herself, waiting for his hands to follow his words. But they didn't. Instead, Enzo circled behind her, and she heard the soft snick of a knife. The zip ties fell away. Her wrists were free. Go upstairs, he said. 3rd door on the left. There's a bathroom. Clean yourself up. Seraphina turned slowly, confusion cracking through her carefully built walls. What? You heard me. You're not going to. No. His voice was flat. Absolute. Not tonight. Not ever, unless you ask. Unless she asked. She stared at him, searching for the trap, the lie, the cruelty hiding behind the mercy. But Enzo's face gave nothing away. Go, he repeated. So she did. Because in a world where men took everything, a man who gave her a choice was the most dangerous thing she'd ever encountered. The bathroom was bigger than her entire apartment. Seraphina stood in the doorway, taking in the marble countertops, the rainfall shower, the towels so white they looked untouched by human hands. A silk robe hung on a brass hook. Toiletries lined the counter, expensive brands she'd only seen in magazine ads. She locked the door. Only then did her hands start shaking. She gripped the edge of the sink, staring at her reflection. Bruised lip. Hollow eyes. The face of someone who'd learned to disappear inside herself. She'd perfected that skill at 16 when her mother's boyfriend decided Seraphina was old enough to contribute to the household. She'd refined it at 19 when Liam's gambling debts led to her first transaction, sold to a businessman who liked his women quiet and breakable. She'd survived by becoming a ghost in her own body. But tonight, something had shifted. Enzo Carbone had stopped. Men like him didn't stop. They took. They consumed. They justified. Yet he'd cut her free and walked away, leaving her with a choice she didn't know how to process. Unless you ask. The words haunted her as she peeled off her torn clothes and stepped into the shower. Hot water cascaded over her skin, washing away blood and grime but not the confusion twisting in her chest. What kind of mafia boss showed restraint? What kind of predator offered mercy? Maybe he was just a different kind of dangerous. When Seraphina emerged 20 minutes later, wrapped in a silk robe, she found clothes laid out on the bed. Black leggings. An oversized sweater. Undergarments still in packaging. Everything in her size. How did he know her size? A knock interrupted her thoughts. Miss Vale. A woman's voice, accented and warm. May I come in? Seraphina opened the door to find a woman in her 50s, silver-haired and elegant, holding a tray with food. Her eyes were kind, the first kind eyes Seraphina had seen in this house. I'm Lucia, the woman said, setting the tray on a side table. I manage the household. Mr. Carbone asked me to make sure you ate something. He did. He did. Lucia smiled gently. The soup is my grandmother's recipe. It fixes most things, even the things we don't talk about. Seraphina sat on the edge of the bed, pulling the tray closer. Chicken soup, fresh bread, a glass of water. Simple. Honest. The kind of food that reminded her of a life before everything went wrong. Why is he being kind to me? The question slipped out before she could stop it. Lucia's expression shifted, something between sympathy and knowing. Mr. Carbone is many things. But when he decides to protect something, he protects it completely. You'll learn that. I'm not staying. Aren't you? Lucia moved toward the door, pausing at the threshold. Your brother's debt won't disappear. And out there, she gestured vaguely toward the window, toward the city beyond, you have no protection. In here, you do. Sometimes survival means accepting help from unexpected places. The door closed softly behind her. Seraphina stared at the soup, her stomach twisting with hunger and suspicion in equal measure. But hunger won. She ate slowly, letting warmth spread through her body for the first time in days. Maybe weeks. Enzo stood in his office, staring at the city lights below, a glass of whiskey untouched in his hand. He'd made a mistake. Not in sparing her, though his men would certainly see it that way. No, the mistake was in the way his pulse had quickened when she'd flinched. The way rage had flooded his veins when he saw the bruise on her lip. The way something ancient and possessive had roared to life inside him when she'd whispered, asterisk, does it matter? Asterisk. It shouldn't matter. Women were complications. Distractions. Liabilities in a world where loyalty was currency and weakness was death. He'd built his empire on ruthlessness, on the ability to make decisions without hesitation or emotion. But when Seraphina had looked at him with those haunted eyes, expecting cruelty and receiving none, something had cracked in the armor he'd spent 15 years building. A knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. Come in. Dante, no, he couldn't use that name. Liam walked in, Enzo's second-in-command and the closest thing he had to a friend. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a scar running down his neck from a knife fight 3 years ago. Loyal to the bone. You killed Matteo, Liam said without preamble. He damaged my property. Your property? Liam raised an eyebrow. Since when do you care about a debt marker getting roughed up? Since now. Enzo took a sip of whiskey, letting the burn ground him. Spread the word. Anyone who touches her answers to me. Boss, with all respect, this is going to raise questions. The families are already watching you. Vincent's been pushing for territory. The Russians want to renegotiate terms. Showing weakness over a woman. I'm not showing weakness. Enzo turned, his voice dropping to something cold and absolute. I'm establishing a boundary. There's a difference. Liam studied him for a long moment. You know what your father would say. My father's dead. Because he let emotion cloud his judgment. The words hung in the air like a blade. Enzo's father had been gunned down 10 years ago because he'd trusted the wrong person, a woman he'd loved more than the empire. The lesson had been clear, love was a weapon enemies could use against you. Enzo had sworn he'd never make the same mistake. Yet here he was, protecting a woman he'd known for 3 hours. She stays under my protection, Enzo said finally. That's not negotiable. Make sure everyone understands. Liam nodded slowly. And when Vincent asks why? Tell him I'm establishing leverage. Her brother still owes me. She's collateral. Is that all she is? Enzo didn't answer. Because he didn't know anymore. Seraphina woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then memory crashed back, the mansion, Enzo, the impossible mercy. She sat up quickly, heart racing, half expecting to find the door locked or guards stationed outside. But the door was unlocked. She dressed in the clothes Lucia had left and ventured into the hallway. The mansion was even more impressive in daylight, art that probably cost more than she'd earn in a lifetime, hallways wide enough to drive a car through, silence that felt almost sacred. She followed the sound of voices to a dining room where Enzo sat at the head of a long table, reading a newspaper. He looked up when she entered. Sit. It wasn't a request, but it wasn't cruel either. Just, expectation. Seraphina sat 3 chairs away. A moment later, Lucia appeared with coffee, eggs, toast, a feast compared to the instant ramen she'd been living on. Sleep well? Enzo asked, folding his newspaper. Why am I here? Your brother owes me money. So collect from him. He's disappeared. Enzo leaned back, studying her with those unreadable eyes. Which means you're my leverage. When he surfaces, he'll come for you. He won't. The words tasted bitter. Liam doesn't come back for anyone. Then you'll stay until the debt is paid another way. As what? Your prisoner. As my guest. Enzo sipped his coffee. With conditions. Here it was. The trap. The price. What conditions? She asked quietly. You don't leave the property without my permission. You don't contact anyone outside this house. You cooperate with security protocols. He paused. And you attend an event with me tomorrow night. Seraphina blinked. An event? A charity gala. The mayor will be there. Several business partners. I need a date. Why me? Because you're here. Because it serves my purposes. His gaze sharpened. And because refusing isn't an option. There it was, the steel beneath the silk. The reminder that mercy had limits. What happens if I say no? Enzo stood, buttoning his suit jacket with precise movements. Then you discover whether the streets are safer than this house. We both know the answer. He was right. Without money, without connections, without anywhere to run, she was more vulnerable outside than in. At least here, she had food. Shelter. The strange protection of a man who'd killed someone for bruising her lip. Fine, she whispered. I'll go. Good. Enzo moved toward the door, then paused. Lucia will take you shopping this afternoon. Get whatever you need. I don't have money. You think I'm going to make you pay? Something almost like amusement flickered across his face. Everything you need is covered. Consider it part of the arrangement. He left before she could respond. Seraphina sat alone in the dining room, staring at her untouched breakfast, trying to understand the man who just bought her a dress for a gala while holding her captive. The boutique was in a part of the city Seraphina had only seen in movies, streets lined with designer stores where a single purse cost more than a month's rent. Lucia guided her through racks of evening gowns while two bodyguards waited outside, subtle but unmistakable. Mr. Carbone has exquisite taste, Lucia said, holding up a midnight blue gown. But the choice is yours. Seraphina touched the fabric, silk so fine it felt like water. Why is he doing this? Doing what? Pretending I'm not a prisoner. Lucia's expression softened. Maybe because he doesn't see you that way. Then what does he see? That's a question only he can answer. Lucia handed her the gown. Try this one. In the dressing room, Seraphina slipped into the dress. It fit perfectly, hugging her curves, elegant without being revealing. She looked at her reflection and barely recognized herself. The girl who'd survived by disappearing looked almost visible. When she stepped out, Lucia smiled. That's the one. That night, unable to sleep, Seraphina wandered the mansion's halls. She found herself outside Enzo's office, light spilling from beneath the door. She should have walked away. Instead, she knocked. Come in. Enzo sat behind his desk, surrounded by papers, a glass of whiskey at his elbow. He looked tired, the kind of tired that came from carrying weight no one else could see. Can't sleep? He asked. I don't understand you. Most people don't. You could've, she stopped, unsure how to finish. Could've what? Hurt you? Used you? Enzo leaned back. Yes. I could have. Do you want me to explain why I didn't? Yes. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, because I've seen what happens when power is the only language men speak. My father built this empire on fear and force. It made him untouchable. It also made him empty. His gaze met hers. I'm not interested in being empty. But you're still holding me here. For your protection as much as mine. I don't need your protection. Yes, Enzo said softly, you do. You just don't realize it yet. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression hardened into something lethal. What? Seraphina asked. Enzo stood, jaw tight. Vincent Marchese just made a move. He's challenging my authority publicly. He looked at her, and for the first time, she saw something almost vulnerable in his eyes. Tomorrow's gala isn't just an event. It's a declaration. If I show up without projecting strength, he'll see it as weakness. And I'm part of that projection. Yes. Seraphina understood then, she wasn't just a debt marker. She was a statement. A woman on Enzo Carbone's arm meant he was unshakable, controlled, powerful. It also made her a target. What happens if Vincent comes for me? She asked. Enzo's voice dropped to something dark and final. Then he learns why people fear my name. The promise in those words should have terrified her. Instead, it made her feel something she hadn't felt in years, safe. The gala was held at the Grandview Hotel, a towering monument of marble and crystal chandeliers where the city's elite gathered to pretend their money was clean. Seraphina stood before the mirror in her midnight blue gown, barely recognizing the woman staring back. Lucia had styled her hair in soft waves, applied makeup that enhanced rather than masked, and fastened a diamond necklace around her throat, on loan from Enzo's vault, she'd been told. She looked like she belonged in this world. She felt like an imposter. A knock at the door. "Miss Vale?" "Mr. Carbone is ready." Seraphina took a breath and opened the door. Enzo stood in the hallway wearing a black tuxedo that looked custom-made, because of course it was. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his jaw clean-shaven, his presence magnetic in a way that made the air feel thinner. But it was his eyes that caught her, the way they widened just slightly when he saw her, the way his gaze traveled from her face to the gown and back again. "You look beautiful," he said quietly. It wasn't a compliment designed to flatter. It was a statement of fact, delivered with something that almost sounded like surprise. "Thank you," she whispered. He offered his arm. "Stay close to me tonight. Don't speak to anyone unless I'm present. And if anyone makes you uncomfortable, tell me immediately." "You think someone will try something?" "I think Vincent will test boundaries. That's what predators do." His jaw tightened. "But you're under my protection. That means something in this world." Seraphina slipped her hand through his arm, feeling the solid muscle beneath expensive fabric. As they descended the grand staircase together, bodyguards fell into formation around them, silent shadows ensuring their safety. The drive to the hotel was quiet. Enzo stared out the window, his mind clearly elsewhere, fingers drumming once against his thigh before going still. Control. Everything about him screamed control. "Are you nervous?" she asked. "No." He turned to look at her. "Are you?" "Terrified." "Good. Fear keeps you sharp." His voice softened just slightly. "But you'll be safe. I promise you that." Another promise from a man who'd already kept more than she'd expected. The ballroom was a sea of designer gowns and tailored tuxedos, champagne flowing like water, laughter echoing off vaulted ceilings. Seraphina had never seen this much wealth in one place. Every face was polished, every smile calculated, every conversation a transaction. Enzo's hand rested lightly on her lower back as he guided her through the crowd. People parted for him instinctively, not because he demanded it, but because his presence commanded it. Heads turned. Whispers followed. "Enzo Carbone," a voice called out. Fashionably late as always. A man approached, mid-40s, silver-haired, wearing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Vincent Marchese. Seraphina knew his face from the newspapers. He ran the East Side territories, controlled the docks, and had been pushing against Enzo's authority for months. "Vincent." Enzo's tone was neutral. "Dangerous. I didn't realize punctuality was your concern." "Everything you do concerns me." Vincent's gaze slid to Seraphina, lingering just long enough to be disrespectful. "And who is this lovely creature? I didn't know you were seeing anyone. You don't know a lot of things." Enzo's hand tightened almost imperceptibly on Seraphina's back. "Seraphina Vale, this is Vincent Marchese. A business associate." "Associate." Vincent laughed coldly. "That's generous. Tell me, Miss Vale, how does a woman end up on Enzo Carbone's arm? I'm always curious about his acquisitions." The word dripped with condescension. Seraphina felt anger spark in her chest, not at the insult, but at the assumption that she had no voice, no agency, no right to respond. She was about to speak when Enzo cut in smoothly. "Careful, Vincent. I'd hate for this evening to end poorly." "Is that a threat?" "It's a fact." Enzo's smile was all teeth. "Now if you'll excuse us, we have people to see." He guided Seraphina away before Vincent could respond, his jaw tight with restrained fury. "He's testing you," she whispered. "He's testing boundaries. There's a difference." Enzo grabbed 2 champagne flutes from a passing waiter, handing her one. "Don't drink it. Just hold it. Appearances matter here." They circulated through the ballroom, Enzo introducing her to business partners, politicians, donors, all people who smiled while calculating advantage. Seraphina played her part, speaking little, smiling when appropriate, staying close to Enzo's side. But she noticed things. The way certain men watched Enzo with barely concealed resentment. The way women assessed her like a threat to be eliminated. The way bodyguards positioned themselves strategically throughout the room, always watching, always ready. This wasn't a gala. It was a battlefield dressed in silk and diamonds. An hour in, Enzo was pulled away by the mayor for a private conversation. He hesitated before leaving, his eyes searching hers. "Stay with Liam," he instructed, nodding toward his second-in-command who'd materialized beside them. "I'll be back in 10 minutes. Seraphina watched him disappear into a side room, feeling suddenly exposed despite Liam's imposing presence beside her. "He doesn't usually bring dates to these things," Liam said conversationally. "I'm not a date. I'm collateral." "Is that what you think?" Liam's expression was unreadable. "Interesting." Before she could ask what he meant, a woman approached, stunning, mid-30s, wearing a red gown that cost more than a car. Her smile was sharp as broken glass. "You must be the new girl," she said, looking Seraphina up and down. "I'm Isabella. Enzo and I have history." "Bella," Liam warned quietly. "What?" "I'm just being friendly." Isabella leaned closer, her perfume cloying. "Tell me, sweetheart, how long do you think you'll last?" Enzo goes through women like he goes through enemies, quickly and without remorse. Seraphina met her gaze steadily. "I'm not worried about lasting. I'm worried about surviving." Something flickered in Isabella's eyes, surprise, maybe respect. "Smart girl. But survival here requires knowing whose bed to be in. And Enzo Carbone's bed? That's where women go to disappear. That's enough." Liam stepped between them, his voice cold. "Walk away, Bella." Isabella laughed, bitter and cruel. "Tell Enzo I said hello. Tell him I miss the way he used to." "I said walk away." She did, but not before shooting Seraphina one final look, half warning, half pity. Seraphina's hands trembled slightly. She set down her champagne flute before anyone noticed. "Don't listen to her," Liam said quietly. "Bella's got an axe to grind. Enzo ended things 2 years ago, and she's never forgiven him." "Why did he end it?" "Because she wanted something he couldn't give." Liam's expression softened just slightly. "She wanted his heart. Enzo doesn't give that away." Before Seraphina could process that, Enzo reappeared, his face dark with controlled fury. He took one look at her expression and turned to Liam. "What happened?" "Bella happened." Enzo's jaw worked. "Where is she?" "Boss, it's handled." "Where?" Liam pointed across the ballroom. Enzo's gaze found Isabella immediately, and for a moment, Seraphina saw something lethal cross his face. Then he took Seraphina's hand, his touch gentle despite the violence simmering beneath his skin. "Come with me," he said. He led her through a side door, down a quiet corridor, into a small lounge area away from the crowd. The moment the door closed, he turned to her. "What did she say?" "It doesn't matter." "It matters to me." "What did she say?" Seraphina hesitated, then, "She said women disappear in your bed." Enzo's expression shifted, something between anger and pain. "And you believed her?" "I don't know what to believe." The words came out shakier than she intended. "I don't understand any of this. I don't understand why you're protecting me. I don't understand why you care if someone insults me. I don't understand. Because you're mine." The words hung in the air between them, raw and possessive and terrifying. I'm not a possession, she whispered. No. You're not. Enzo stepped closer, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. But you're under my protection, which means anyone who hurts you answers to me. That's not negotiable. Why? Because, he stopped, jaw tight, clearly fighting some internal battle. Because when I look at you, I see someone who's survived things that should have broken them. Someone who's still standing despite everything. And that. His voice dropped. That's worth protecting. Seraphina's breath caught. This close, she could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight he carried, the loneliness hiding behind all that control. Your ex-girlfriend thinks you're going to hurt me. I probably will. Enzo's honesty was brutal. Not intentionally. But this world destroys soft things. And you, his hand lifted, hovering near her face but not touching. You're softer than you pretend to be. I'm not soft. I'm a survivor. You're both. His hand dropped. Come on. We should get back before Vincent thinks I'm showing weakness. But as they returned to the ballroom, Seraphina realized something that terrified her more than any threat Vincent could make. She was starting to trust Enzo Carbone. And trust was the most dangerous thing she could give a man who lived in darkness. The night ended without incident, but tension followed them home like a shadow. Enzo was silent during the drive, staring out the window, his mind clearly elsewhere. Seraphina didn't push. She'd learned to read his moods, when to speak, when to stay quiet, when his silence was contemplation versus fury. Back at the mansion, he walked her to her room without a word. Thank you, she said quietly. For tonight. For protecting me. Enzo turned, his expression unreadable. You don't have to thank me for basic decency. In my experience, decency isn't basic. Something shifted in his eyes, recognition, maybe. Understanding. Get some rest. Tomorrow we'll. His phone buzzed. Then again. And again. Enzo pulled it out, and his entire body went rigid. Seraphina watched color drain from his face as he read whatever message had come through. What is it? Stay here. His voice was cold, lethal. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone except Lucia or me. Enzo, what's happening? Just do it. He was already moving down the hallway, barking orders into his phone. Get everyone to the safe room. Now. I want every entrance secured. If anyone breaches the perimeter, shoot first. Terror spiked through Seraphina's chest. She rushed into her room, locked the door, and pressed her ear against it, trying to hear what was happening. Shouting. Running footsteps. The unmistakable sound of guns being loaded. Then silence. Horrible, suffocating silence. Seraphina backed away from the door, her heart hammering. This was it, whatever fragile safety she'd found here was about to shatter. Vincent had made his move. Or Liam had betrayed him. Or. The lights went out. Complete darkness swallowed the room. Seraphina pressed herself against the wall, trying to control her breathing, trying not to panic. She heard the faint sound of breaking glass somewhere below. Voices speaking in hushed, urgent tones. Then her door handle rattled. Seraphina. Enzo's voice, low and controlled. Open the door. She fumbled with the lock, yanking it open. Enzo stood there wearing a bulletproof vest over his tuxedo shirt, a gun in his hand, 2 bodyguards flanking him. We're leaving, he said. Now. What's happening? Vincent sent men. They're trying to breach the east wing. He grabbed her hand, his grip iron strong. Stay behind me. Don't make a sound. They moved through the dark mansion like ghosts, Enzo's hand never leaving hers. Seraphina could hear her own heartbeat, could feel adrenaline singing through her veins. They descended a back staircase she hadn't known existed, moved through what looked like a wine cellar, then into a tunnel that stretched beneath the property. Where are we going? Safe house. 3 miles north. Enzo glanced back at her. Can you run in that dress? I'll manage. They emerged from the tunnel into a garage where an SUV waited, engine running. Enzo pushed her into the back seat, climbed in beside her, and the vehicle tore out of the garage at dangerous speed. Gunshots echoed behind them. Seraphina ducked instinctively, but Enzo pulled her against his chest, his body shielding hers as the SUV swerved onto a main road. Is everyone okay? She asked, voice muffled against his vest. Lucia's safe. Liam's handling the situation. Enzo's jaw was tight. But Vincent just declared war. Because of me. Because he's an idiot who thinks chaos equals power. Enzo's arm tightened around her. This isn't your fault. But it felt like it was. She was the catalyst, the woman who'd made Enzo Carbone show something resembling care, something resembling weakness. The safe house was a nondescript building in an industrial area, concrete walls, reinforced doors, no windows. Inside was sparse but functional, a living area, small kitchen, 2 bedrooms, everything designed for survival rather than comfort. Enzo immediately checked every room, secured every lock, positioned himself between Seraphina and the door. We'll stay here until I know it's safe, he said. Seraphina sank onto the couch, adrenaline crash hitting her hard. Her hands shook. Her breathing came too fast. Enzo knelt in front of her, his hands on her knees, steady and warm. Look at me, he said quietly. You're safe. I won't let anything happen to you. You can't promise that. Yes. I can. His voice was absolute. Because I've already decided that keeping you alive matters more than anything else. More than territory. More than reputation. More than the rules I've lived by for 15 years. Seraphina stared at him, searching his face for the lie, the manipulation, the angle. But there was only raw honesty and something that looked terrifyingly like devotion. Why? She whispered. Why does it matter so much? Enzo was quiet for a long moment. Then, because you're the first person in a decade who's looked at me and seen something other than power. When you flinched that first night, you weren't afraid of Enzo Carbone, the Mafia boss. You were afraid of being hurt by another man who'd take what he wanted. He swallowed hard. And I realized I didn't want to be that man. Not for you. Not ever again. The confession hung between them, raw and vulnerable and more dangerous than any gun. Seraphina's hand lifted slowly, hesitantly, and touched his face. He went completely still, as if her touch might shatter him. You're not what I expected, she said softly. Neither are you. The distance between them collapsed like gravity. Enzo's hand slid into her hair, gentle despite the roughness of his palms, and Seraphina leaned forward, closing the gap, pressing her lips to his. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, questioning. Then it deepened, became something desperate and necessary, like they were both drowning and each other was air. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Enzo rested his forehead against hers. This changes everything, he whispered. I know. If Vincent finds out I care about you, he'll use it against me. He'll come for you harder. Then don't let him find out. Enzo pulled back, his eyes searching hers. You're not afraid. I'm terrified. Seraphina's honesty matched his. But I've been afraid my whole life. At least now I'm afraid with someone who actually gives a damn whether I survive. Something like pain crossed Enzo's face. He stood, pacing the small space like a caged animal. You should hate me, he said finally. I'm holding you captive. I'm using you as leverage. I'm putting you in danger just by existing in your life. Maybe. But you also gave me a choice when no one else ever did. Seraphina stood, crossing to him. You're not perfect, Enzo. But you're trying to be decent in a world that punishes decency. That has to count for something. He looked at her like she was a miracle he didn't deserve. Then his phone rang, shattering the moment. He answered immediately. Talk to me. A pause. What? His face went white. You're sure? Another pause. Damn it. He hung up slowly, his hand shaking slightly. What happened? Enzo turned to her, and the devastation in his eyes made her stomach drop. Vincent didn't send those men, he said quietly. Liam just found proof. The attack was ordered by someone inside my organization. His voice cracked just slightly. Someone I trust betrayed me. The revelation hung in the air like poison. Someone in Enzo's inner circle wanted him dead. And Seraphina realized with crystal clarity, they'd use her to make it happen. The betrayal cut deeper than any bullet could. Enzo spent the next 3 hours on the phone, his voice controlled but his eyes burning with fury. Seraphina watched him pace the safe house like a wounded predator, piecing together clues, demanding answers, slowly dismantling the trust he'd built over years. When he finally hung up, the silence was suffocating. Who was it? Seraphina asked quietly. Enzo's jaw worked. I don't know yet. But whoever it is has access to my security protocols, my schedule, my vulnerabilities. He turned to look at her, and the raw pain in his eyes made her chest ache. They knew about you. They knew taking you would destroy me. Then send me away. What? Send me away, she repeated, stronger now. If I'm the weakness they're exploiting, remove me from the equation. Let me disappear. Enzo crossed the room in 3 strides, his hands gripping her shoulders. You think I'd throw you to the wolves to save myself? I think you do what's necessary to survive. That's who you are. That's who I was. His voice cracked. Before you. Before I realized that surviving without something worth protecting is just existing. And I'm done just existing. Seraphina's breath caught. Enzo. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his entire body went rigid. No. No, no, no. What? He turned the screen toward her. A text message. A photo. Lucia, bound to a chair, blood trickling from her temple, terror in her eyes. Below the image, * you have 24 hours to surrender your territory to Vincent. Or the old woman dies. Then we come for your pretty little pet, *. Seraphina's world tilted. Oh God. Lucia. This is my fault. Enzo's voice was hollow. I brought you into this world. I made you visible. I painted a target on everyone I care about. We have to save her. There is no we. Enzo's tone turned cold, distant. You're staying here. I'm handling this alone. You can't just. I can and I will. He was already moving, grabbing weapons from a hidden compartment, loading magazines with mechanical precision. Liam will stay with you. Don't leave this building. Don't open the door for anyone except him. Enzo, listen to me. No. He turned, and the look in his eyes was pure devastation. You were right. You're my weakness. And weaknesses get people killed. So you're staying here where you're safe, and I'm going to end this. By giving Vincent what he wants. By burning his entire operation to the ground. The promise in his voice was lethal. He took someone I care about. He threatened you. Those are unforgivable. Seraphina grabbed his arm. If you go in there alone, you'll die. Maybe. Enzo's expression softened just slightly. But at least you'll live. He pulled away before she could respond, before she could tell him that his death would destroy her anyway. The door slammed shut, locks clicking into place. Seraphina was alone. 6 hours passed like 6 years. Liam arrived an hour after Enzo left, his face grim. He didn't speak much, just checked the perimeter, positioned himself by the door, cleaned his weapons with methodical precision. He's going to get himself killed, Seraphina said finally. Probably. Liam didn't look up. But he'll take half of Vincent's crew with him. That's not good enough. For Enzo, it is. He's been carrying this empire alone for 10 years. He's tired, Seraphina. Tonight might be the night he decides to stop carrying it. The words hit like a punch. You think he wants to die? I think he wants to stop hurting people he cares about. Liam finally met her gaze. You changed something in him. Made him remember what it feels like to want something beyond power. But in this world, wanting anything makes you vulnerable. So what, I'm supposed to just hide here while he sacrifices himself? Yes. Because that's what he needs from you. Liam's voice gentled. He needs to know you're safe. That's the only thing keeping him focused right now. Seraphina turned away, fists clenched, rage and helplessness warring inside her. She'd spent her whole life being protected by men who saw her as property. But Enzo was different. He saw her as choice. As agency. As someone worth dying for. And she refused to let him die alone. Midnight came with devastating news. Liam's phone rang. He answered, listened, and his face drained of color. What? Seraphina demanded. Enzo walked into Vincent's warehouse an hour ago. Alone. Liam's voice was tight. He offered himself in exchange for Lucia. And? Vincent agreed. Then shot him anyway. The world stopped. Seraphina couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process the words. Enzo, untouchable, unbreakable Enzo, had been shot. Is he alive? Her voice came out barely above a whisper. He's alive. Vest took most of it. But Vincent has him now. Liam stood, already grabbing gear. I'm going in. You stay here. No. Seraphina's voice was steel. I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. He went in there because of me. Because protecting me mattered more than protecting himself. She grabbed a jacket from the closet. I'm not letting him die because I was too afraid to fight. You're not trained for this. I'm a survivor. That's training enough. She met Liam's gaze without flinching. You can bring me, or I'll find my own way there. Your choice. Liam stared at her for a long moment. Then, incredibly, he smiled, bitter and sad. He really chose well with you. Then let's go get him back. The warehouse district was a graveyard of rusted metal and broken dreams. Liam parked 3 blocks away, killed the engine, and handed Seraphina a small pistol. You know how to use this? Point and shoot, right? Close enough. He checked his own weapons. Vincent has 12 men inside. Enzo's probably in the main office, 2nd floor, northeast corner. We go in quiet, extract him, get out before reinforcements arrive. And if it goes wrong? Then we die together. Liam's expression was grim. But we die getting him out. Understood? Seraphina nodded, terror and determination mixing in equal measure. They moved through shadows like ghosts, approaching the warehouse from the blind side. Liam disabled 2 guards with brutal efficiency, silent, lethal, professional. Inside, the building was a maze of crates and machinery, lit by flickering overhead lights. They heard voices above, Vincent's cruel laughter, the sound of flesh hitting flesh, a grunt of pain that made Seraphina's heart stop. Enzo. Liam held up a hand, wait. He disappeared up a staircase, moving with predator grace. Seraphina pressed herself against a crate, gun trembling in her hands, listening to her own heartbeat thunder in her ears. Then, gunshots. Shouting. Chaos erupting above. Seraphina didn't think. She ran. Up the stairs, through a corridor, following the sounds of violence. She burst into an office to find Liam fighting 2 of Vincent's men, Enzo slumped in a chair, blood soaking his shirt, and Vincent holding a gun to Lucia's head. Well, Vincent said, smiling like a snake. The little pet came to play. Seraphina raised her gun, hands shaking. Let them go. Or what? You'll shoot me. Vincent laughed. You don't have it in you, sweetheart. You're too soft. Too broken. Too. The gunshot was deafening. Vincent staggered back, shock replacing his smile, blood blooming across his shoulder. Seraphina had pulled the trigger without thought, without hesitation, without mercy. I'm not soft, she said quietly. I'm a survivor. Chaos erupted. Liam finished off the last guard. Lucia scrambled free. And Enzo, broken, bleeding Enzo, looked at Seraphina like she was everything. You came, he whispered. Of course I came, you idiot. She dropped beside him, hands shaking as she assessed his injuries. You think I'd let you die alone? I was trying to protect you. By sacrificing yourself? That's not protection. That's cowardice. Tears blurred her vision. You don't get to decide my worth by dying for me. You prove it by living for me. Something broke in Enzo's expression, years of loneliness, years of control, years of believing he had to carry everything alone. I don't know how, he admitted. Then learn. She kissed him, hard and desperate and full of fury. Because I'm not losing you. Not tonight. Not ever. They barely made it out alive. Liam drove like a man possessed, running red lights, taking corners that made the SUV tilt dangerously. Seraphina kept pressure on Enzo's wounds, her hands slick with his blood, her voice steady despite the terror clawing at her throat. Stay with me, she commanded. Enzo, look at me. Stay with me. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused. You shot Vincent. I'd do it again. A ghost of a smile. Knew you were, fierce. Save your strength. We're almost there. Liam pulled up to a private clinic, one of Enzo's safe locations, staffed by doctors who asked no questions. They rushed him inside, and Seraphina stood in the hallway, covered in blood that wasn't hers, shaking with adrenaline crash. Lucia appeared beside her, battered but alive, and pulled her into a fierce embrace. You saved us, the older woman whispered. Both of us. I just pulled a trigger. No. You fought when you could have run. That's different. Lucia pulled back, studying her face. He chose well with you. That's what Liam said. Because it's true. Lucia smiled sadly. Enzo has been alone for so long. Carrying so much weight. Never trusting anyone enough to share the burden. But tonight, you showed him he doesn't have to be alone anymore. Seraphina wiped her eyes. What if he doesn't survive? He will. Because now he has something to survive for. 3 hours later, the doctor emerged. "He'll live," the man said. "2 broken ribs, significant bruising, minor internal bleeding that we've stabilized. He needs rest, but he's stable." Relief crashed through Seraphina so hard her knees buckled. Liam caught her arm, steadying her. "Can I see him?" she asked. 5 minutes. He needs sleep. Enzo lay in a hospital bed, pale and battered but breathing. His eyes opened when she entered, tracking her movement across the room. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey yourself." She sat beside him, taking his hand carefully. "You scared me." "Good. Maybe you'll think twice before following me into danger." "Not a chance." She squeezed his hand. "You're stuck with me now." Enzo's expression shifted, something vulnerable and raw. "Why did you come? You could have run. Could have disappeared. Could have finally been free. Because freedom without you isn't freedom. It's just empty." She brought his hand to her lips, kissing his knuckles gently. "You gave me a choice, Enzo. I'm choosing you. I'm choosing this. Even knowing how dangerous it is. Vincent's still alive. He'll come for you. Let him try." Her voice was steel wrapped in silk. "I'm not the same girl who walked into your office 2 weeks ago. You taught me I'm worth protecting. Now I'm going to prove I'm worth fighting beside." Enzo stared at her like she'd rewritten his entire world. "I love you," he said quietly. "I don't know when it happened. Don't know if it was that first night when you flinched, or at the gala when you held your ground against Bella, or tonight when you shot Vincent to save me. But I love you. And that terrifies me more than any enemy ever could." Seraphina's breath caught. "Why does it terrify you?" "Because love is the one thing I can't control. Can't strategize. Can't protect against." His grip tightened on her hand. "Loving you makes me vulnerable in ways I've spent 15 years avoiding." "Good." She leaned down, kissing him softly. "Because I love you too. And we're going to be vulnerable together. We're going to be strong together. We're going to survive together." "Together," Enzo repeated, like the word was foreign but beautiful. "Together," she confirmed. Outside, Liam made phone calls, gathering loyal soldiers, planning their next move. Vincent was wounded but not destroyed. The traitor in Enzo's organization was still unidentified. The war was far from over. But inside that small hospital room, 2 broken people found something neither had believed possible: hope. Enzo had spent years building walls to protect himself from feeling anything. Seraphina had spent years numbing herself to survive anything. Together, they were learning that vulnerability wasn't weakness, it was the courage to let someone see the broken parts and love them anyway. "What happens now?" Seraphina asked. "Now." Enzo's smile was dangerous and beautiful. "Now we stop running. Stop hiding. Stop letting fear make our decisions." His eyes burned with determination. "We end Vincent. We find the traitor. We rebuild this empire on different terms, terms that include you beside me, not behind me." "As what?" "Your partner. As my equal." The words were a vow. No more collateral. No more leverage. "You're mine by choice, and I'm yours by choice. Everything else is negotiable." Seraphina felt tears slip down her cheeks, not from pain, but from the overwhelming realization that she'd found something she'd stopped believing existed, a man who saw her as whole, as worthy, as enough. "Then let's burn it all down and build something better," she whispered. Enzo pulled her down beside him, wrapping his arm around her despite the pain it caused. "Together," he murmured against her hair. "Together," she agreed. And in that moment, despite the danger waiting beyond these walls, despite the war still raging, despite everything trying to tear them apart, they were unbreakable. Because love, real love, wasn't about possession or protection or power. It was about two people choosing each other, again and again, no matter the cost. And Seraphina and Enzo had made their choice. 3 days later, Enzo was strong enough to walk, and furious enough to wage war. The safe house became a command center. Maps covered every surface. Laptops glowed with surveillance feeds. Loyal soldiers rotated guard duty while Liam coordinated intelligence from contacts across the city. Vincent had gone underground, but his network was bleeding, businesses shuttered, shipments intercepted, allies quietly switching sides. But the traitor remained a ghost. It has to be someone with level 1 clearance, Liam said, circling 3 names on a whiteboard. Only 5 people have full access to your security protocols. Me, Lucia, Roman, Aaron, and Theo. Enzo studied the names, his jaw tight. Roman's been with me for 8 years. Aaron saved my life in the dockyard raid. Theo, he paused. Theo's cousin died in a shipment hijacking last year. Vincent's territory. The room went silent. Theo, Seraphina said quietly. He's been quiet lately. Withdrawn. Grief does that. But Enzo's eyes had gone cold, calculating. Or guilt. Liam pulled up surveillance footage from the night of the attack. They watched in silence as timestamps revealed movement patterns, security overrides, doors left unlocked that should have been sealed. And there, a shadow slipping through a side entrance 30 minutes before Vincent's men arrived. Liam enhanced the image. Theo. Son of a, Enzo slammed his fist on the table, making everyone jump. The betrayal cut deeper than Vincent's bullet ever could. He's been with me since he was 19. I trusted him. Vincent must have leveraged his cousin's death, Liam said quietly. Convinced him you were responsible. Turned grief into a weapon. Then we turn it back. Enzo's voice was ice. Set a meeting. Tell Theo I want to discuss new security protocols. Make it feel urgent, private. He'll come. And when he does, we give him a choice. Enzo met Seraphina's gaze, something almost sad in his eyes. Redemption or consequences. Everyone deserves that much. The meeting was set for midnight at a warehouse Enzo owned, neutral ground, or so Theo would believe. In reality, it was a cage waiting to close. Seraphina insisted on being there. Enzo argued. She won. I've earned the right to see this through, she said, strapping on a bulletproof vest. You don't protect me by leaving me behind anymore. We agreed, equals. Equals who make me terrified every moment you're in danger. Good. Now you know how I feel. She checked her gun, she'd been practicing with Liam, learning to shoot with precision rather than panic. Let's end this. They arrived an hour early, positioning soldiers in shadows, setting up surveillance, preparing for every possible scenario. Theo arrived exactly on time, alone as instructed, his face drawn with exhaustion. Enzo stepped from the shadows. Hello, Theo. Theo's hand moved toward his weapon, then stopped when he saw the dozen red laser dots painting his chest. Boss. His voice cracked. I can explain. Can you? Enzo's tone was conversational, deadly. Explain how you sold me out to the man who killed your cousin. Explain how you endangered Lucia. Explain how you put a target on Seraphina. Theo's face crumpled. He said you were responsible. Vincent showed me evidence, shipment manifests with your signature, routes you approved. He said you sacrificed my cousin to protect a deal. And you believed him without asking me? Because I wanted to believe it. Theo's anguish was raw. Because grief needed someone to blame, and you were easier to hate than the truth, that Carlo died because this world is poison and everyone in it gets burned eventually. Silence stretched like broken glass. Vincent lied, Enzo said quietly. I wasn't responsible for your cousin's death. Vincent ambushed that shipment specifically to frame me, to turn you against me. And it worked. Theo's legs buckled. No. No, he showed me proof. Forged documents. False testimony. He's been planning this for months. Enzo pulled out a tablet, scrolling through files. Here. The actual manifests. The real routes. Evidence that Vincent orchestrated the entire thing. Theo stared at the screen, and something died in his eyes. Oh God! What have I done? You betrayed the only family you had left. Enzo's voice carried devastation and fury in equal measure. You endangered innocent people. You nearly got me killed. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this. Enzo raised his gun. You know the rules. Betrayal demands blood. Theo closed his eyes, accepting his fate. Do it. I deserve it. Enzo's finger tensed on the trigger. Then Seraphina stepped forward, placing her hand gently over his. Wait. Seraphina. He was manipulated. Used. His grief made him vulnerable, and Vincent exploited it. She looked at Theo. That doesn't excuse what he did. But it explains it. And maybe, she turned back to Enzo. Maybe mercy is how we prove we're different. That we're building something better than what came before. Enzo stared at her, conflict warring in his eyes. You want me to let him live? After everything? I want you to give him the choice you gave me. Her voice softened. Redemption or consequences? You said everyone deserves that much. The warehouse was silent except for breathing, heartbeats, the weight of impossible decisions. Finally, Enzo lowered his gun. You get one chance, he told Theo. One. You help us take down Vincent, every location, every contact, every secret he shared. You give us everything. And maybe, you walk away from this alive. Theo looked up, tears streaming down his face. Why would you? Because she's right. Because the woman I love believes in redemption. And because I'm tired of this world eating everyone it touches. Enzo's jaw tightened. But cross me again, and mercy becomes memory. Understood? Understood. Theo's voice broke. Thank you. I'll give you everything. I swear it. Over the next 12 hours, Theo sang like a canary. Vincent's warehouse locations. His offshore accounts. His remaining allies. His escape routes. Every secret spilled across Liam's laptops, building a map of Vincent's crumbling empire. He's planning to flee the country, Theo said, pointing at a marina on the screen. Private yacht. Leaves at dawn. He thinks you're too wounded to move fast enough. Enzo smiled, cold and predatory. Then let's prove him wrong. Dawn broke over the marina with violence. Enzo's forces hit 3 locations simultaneously, Vincent's remaining warehouses, his offshore accounts, and the marina where his yacht was docked. It was coordinated chaos, precise and brutal, the kind of operation that made legends. Seraphina stayed with Enzo, watching from an SUV as soldiers swarmed the yacht. Vincent emerged onto the deck, gun blazing, desperation replacing his usual smug confidence. He was cornered, and he knew it. Come out and face me, Carbone. Vincent screamed. Or are you too weak now? Enzo stepped from the SUV, Seraphina at his side. Vincent's eyes widened. You brought your pet to watch you die. No. Enzo's voice carried across the water. I brought my partner to watch you fall. The gunfight was brief and brutal. Vincent's remaining men were outgunned, outmaneuvered, outmatched. One by one they dropped, dead or surrendering. Until only Vincent remained, bleeding from a shoulder wound, backed against the yacht's railing. You've lost, Enzo said, gun trained on Vincent's chest. Your empire is ash. Your allies have abandoned you. Your escape route is blocked. It's over. You think killing me ends this? Vincent laughed bitterly. Someone else will rise. Someone always does. This world doesn't change, Carbone. It just recycles the same violence with different faces. Maybe. Enzo's gaze was steady. But I'm done being part of that cycle. He lowered his gun. Vincent's confusion was immediate. What are you? The authorities are on their way. I've provided them with evidence of your operations, trafficking, racketeering, murder. Enough to ensure you never see daylight again. Enzo's smile was cold. Killing you makes you a martyr. Letting you rot in prison makes you forgotten. You sanctimonious, Vincent raised his gun. The shot came from Seraphina. Vincent staggered backward, gun falling from his hand, shock replacing fury. He tumbled over the railing, hitting the water with a splash that echoed like finality. Sirens wailed in the distance. Enzo turned to Seraphina, something like awe in his eyes. You. I'm done letting men like him terrorize people like us. Her voice was steady despite the adrenaline. He was going to shoot you. I wasn't going to let that happen. Enzo pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was the only solid thing in a shifting world. You're incredible. Fierce. Perfect. I'm a survivor who found something worth protecting. She looked up at him. And I'll protect it with everything I have. 6 months later. The Carbone estate had transformed from a fortress into something that almost resembled a home. Flowers bloomed in gardens Lucia tended. Laughter echoed through hallways that once only knew tension. Guards still patrolled, but their presence felt protective rather than oppressive. Seraphina stood on the balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of amber and rose. Strong arms wrapped around her waist from behind. What are you thinking about? Enzo murmured against her hair. How different everything is. How different I am. You're exactly who you always were. You just stopped hiding it. She turned in his arms, studying the face she'd grown to love more than safety itself. The past 6 months had been transformation incarnate. Enzo had restructured his entire organization, cutting ties with the most violent operations, investing in legitimate businesses, using his power to protect rather than dominate. It wasn't perfect. Some allies had abandoned him. Others called him weak. But new alliances had formed, with people who believed change was possible, who wanted to build something better from the ashes of the old world. Theo completed his restitution, Enzo said. He's moving to the West Coast. Starting over. You gave him a second chance. You taught me that mercy isn't weakness. That people can change if given the opportunity. He kissed her forehead. You changed me, Seraphina. Made me remember that power without purpose is just violence dressed in expensive suits. We changed each other. She smiled. I learned I'm worth more than survival. You learned that control isn't the same as strength. Speaking of which, Enzo pulled a small box from his pocket. Seraphina's breath caught. Enzo. I know this world is dangerous. I know loving me comes with risks I can't always mitigate. I know I'm asking you to walk through fire with me for the rest of our lives. He opened the box, revealing a ring that caught the sunset, simple, elegant, perfect. But I'm asking anyway. Will you marry me? Not as collateral or leverage or protection, but as my equal, my partner, my choice. Tears blurred her vision. Yes. 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring on her finger, then kissed her with all the passion and devotion and fierce love that had grown between them. When they finally pulled apart, both were smiling like they'd won something more valuable than any empire. I love you, she whispered. I love you more than power. More than control. More than anything I thought mattered before you. His voice was a vow. And I'll spend every day proving it. The wedding was small, just Lucia, Liam, a handful of trusted friends. No spectacle, no performance, just two people choosing each other in front of witnesses who'd fought beside them. Lucia cried. Liam pretended not to. And when Enzo kissed his bride, the world didn't end. It just began again, softer and kinder and more hopeful than before. 1 year later. Seraphina stood in the nursery, painting the walls a soft lavender while Enzo assembled a crib with more determination than skill. This piece doesn't fit, he muttered. Because you're reading the instructions upside down. I don't need instructions. I ran a criminal empire, I can assemble furniture. Your criminal empire didn't come with Allen wrenches and Swedish diagrams. He laughed, the sound still miraculous to her ears. Enzo Carbone, once the most feared man in the city, now struggling with baby furniture and laughing about it. Their daughter would arrive in 3 months. A girl they'd already named Lucia, after the woman who taught them both that family wasn't blood, it was choice. Are you scared? Seraphina asked. Terrified. Enzo set down the instructions, crossing to her. His hands settled on her swollen belly, feeling their daughter kick. But also, grateful. That I get to do this with you. That I get to be better than what I was. You already are. Because you made me believe it was possible. He kissed her softly. You saw past the monster everyone else feared and found the man underneath. That's a gift I'll never deserve but will spend my life honoring. Seraphina rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, steady and strong and alive. We saved each other. We did. His arms tightened around her. And we'll keep saving each other. Every day. For the rest of our lives. Outside, the city continued its chaos. Deals were made. Power shifted. Violence simmered beneath the surface. But inside the Carbone estate, two people who'd endured unthinkable darkness had found something neither thought possible, light. Not because the world had changed. But because they'd changed how they moved through it. Together. Always together. And in the end, that made all the difference.